What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Water Cooler Talk. My name is Caleb Turner, and I'm a sports writer at KSL.com. This week, on this episode, we are going to be recapping once again several sporting events: football, college football, a little bit of soccer as well, which will tie into a very special interview, which I have coming up later on this episode with Real Salt Lake midfielder Diego Luna, which I hope you stick around for. That will be after the recaps and main part of this episode. A very cool interview with him. So make sure you stick around for that interview. First ever player guest on Water Cooler Talk. And we also have a little bit of hockey for the first time on this episode as the Utah Hockey Club played their first preseason game today on Sunday, September 22nd, 2024. So, to get things kicked off, we're going to recap what went down this weekend in the world of sports as it pertains to our KSL audience, mostly Utah. Starting with college football, Utah State was on the road taking on Temple, and they were favored in that game quite a bit, but came away with a loss, unfortunately, 45 to 29. And that came soon after some news about them possibly joining a different conference. They're currently in the Mountain West, but more on that later. So Utah State picks up the loss, unfortunately. Another one after losses to USC and Utah as well in past weeks. So tough look for the Aggies, but we'll see if things can pick up and maybe, once basketball season rolls around as well. Obviously, we know that Logan tends to be a bit of a basketball town, and they've been doing really well the last few years. So if you're down on the Utah State football season, maybe stick around for basketball coming up in a couple months. Moving on to the Utes of Utah, they were also on the road. They went down to Stillwater, Oklahoma, to take on the Cowboys of Oklahoma State in a tight matchup. It was kind of a coin flip. The odds were going back and forth all week. Largely, I'm guessing that variance came with the speculation of whether or not Cam Rising, the quarterback, would play. Once again, we are kind of in this waiting game, guessing game with who the starting quarterback up at the U is going to be. And all signs pointed to it being Cam Rising once again after he missed last week's game. But when the offense came out to play down there in Oklahoma, it was Isaac Wilson taking the snaps at quarterback for Utah. And the true freshman came away with the win. Utes ended up beating the Cowboys 22 to 19 for their first ever official Big 12 matchup. So big win down there for the Utes. It was a 12 versus 14 matchup there that helped the Utes move up to number 10 in the AP 20 top 25 poll. BYU to kind of finish up college football, maybe the biggest game of the weekend, biggest win of the weekend for Utah teams. BYU was at home in Provo, welcoming Kansas State, the Wildcats, who were undefeated, playing very, very well up until this point. And they just kind of dominated. The Cougars did. Kansas State came in, couldn't really get anything going. Were held without a touchdown in the game for the first time since 2020. And BYU comes away with a 38 to 9 win. Thanks in large part to a highlight play kickoff return, punt return rather, by Parker Kingston that rolled all the way back to almost into the end zone, right to the goal line just about. And he rounded and kind of went along the goal line, came out the other side, and just sprinted down the sideline, got some good blocks in there. Shout out to that BYU special teams unit. Got a touchdown off of a massive punt, and BYU came away with that win, 38 to 9 down there in Provo, which gets BYU into the rankings, into the top 25 for the first time this season. So two ranked teams here in the state of Utah, BYU and Utah, and they're also at the top of the Big 12. So I'll kind of talk a little bit about that again later in the show as we get into our winners and losers. But a very impressive showing by BYU and Utah in the opening week of Big 12 play in football. BYU once again with a defensive effort, allowing only 9 points. They haven't allowed more than 15 points this season. So Jay Hill, the defensive coordinator down there, doing very well, and has those guys playing in great shape. Moving on to a bit of soccer as we continue these recaps. Real Salt Lake was at home against Portland yesterday on Saturday at America First Field in Sandy. Got out to an early start, 2-0, but unfortunately had to settle for a 3-3 tie. However, due to both that result and also An Austin loss to Houston. Elsewhere in the league, RSL clinched a playoff spot, fourth year in a row, sixth time in the last 7 years that RSL has made the playoffs. So very impressive. Although they have gotten out in the first round the last couple years, definitely perennial playoff contenders there and making the into the top half of the Western Conference year after year. So respect there, and they did it pretty early this year with about a month to go in the season still. So big moment for for Real Salt Lake there. Just wish they would have come out with a win. The Utah Royals, on the other hand, were on the road, and they struggled to score. Once again, let in an early goal after letting one in the first 30 seconds last week. They let one in the first 3 minutes at Gotham FC out in New Jersey on Sunday morning, and ended up losing 1-0. So Royals get their third loss in a row. They've had their fair share of injuries. Ali Sentinor, their number one pick, has been away with the women's national team, the under 20 national team at the Women's World Cup, where they came away with a third place medal. So congratulations to Ali on that top three finish, and she will hopefully be coming back to the Royals soon because they need her help, along with several other players such as Mina Tanaka, Japanese striker who has been out with an injury as well. So Royals and RSL both kind of entering the home stretch of their seasons, coming down to the wire. The window for the Royals to make anything meaningful of this season, as far as playoffs or standing spot goes, is really narrowing. They are back to last place in the NWSL, which the sporting director did say one of their goals was to not finish in last place. So that'll be something we keep an eye out these next few weeks to see if the Royals can get a win, a couple ties here and there to not finish in last place. So tough to see that. And then lastly, as I mentioned, Utah Hockey Club in action in their powder blue, sky blue, mountain blue, whatever you want to call it, uniforms, a little bit of white, a little bit of black in there too. No official mascot yet, though it has been rumored that we are close and that apparently the team knows what the mascot is going to be. Nonetheless, Utah Hockey Club, as they are currently known, played their first preseason game ever as an NHL team. They played St. Louis in a kind of an exhibition type match out in Iowa, and they came away with the win, 5-3 after going down early. So the Utah Hockey Club era begins with a win, and they've got a quick turnaround. They come home. They have a game tomorrow night at the Delta Center. At least I believe. You might want to double check that. But first preseason home game for the Utah Hockey Club as they continue warming up for the season, which gets started in a few weeks. So big moment for the Utah hockey team, and hopefully more to come for them. As we look ahead, I mentioned Utah Hockey Club at home, quick turnaround tomorrow versus the Los Angeles Kings. Looking at soccer, Real Salt Lake will head out on the road to face Austin, who helped them out with a loss to get them into the playoffs. Well, now they get a chance to go down there themselves, down to Austin FC, Los Verdes, down in my neck of the woods, South Central Texas, and see what they can do. Haven't had a lot of luck in Texas over the last few years, but RSL looking for a win as they hope to maintain that top four spot in the West. The Royals, on the other hand, come back home. They kind of switch spots. Utah Royals taking on Louisville at America First Field on Saturday. And then in college football, Utah State and BYU hitting the road. The Aggies at Boise State, BYU at Baylor. Whereas the Utes come home to Rice Eccles Stadium where they will face Arizona as Big 12 play continues. And this is where we kind of start to get into the winners and losers of the week. Speaking of Big 12, as I mentioned, it was a big weekend for those two Utah schools. So our first winner of the week, Utah schools in the Big 12. Recent additions, BYU just last year, their first year. Utah this year is their first year in the Big 12 and already making a big mark in the conference, top of the table, top of the standings. Sorry, I'm speaking soccer language there. Standings in the Big 12 with a couple of big wins over the weekend. So they look to keep that going. And then our other winner, the Utah Hockey Club, as I mentioned, they get to start off their history as an NHL team with a win. So that will forever be, etched in the history books. Obviously, it'll mean more once we get to the regular season. We'll see if they can get a win in their first regular season game. But first time out on the ice, first time in these uniforms, first time these players wearing Utah on their chests. They got the win. So definitely we have to recognize them and hope more success for them. As I mentioned, losers. Not a whole lot of losers this week. But kind of with a question mark here, I say, Big 12, by bringing in these teams from Utah, BYU and Utah, um, you have to wonder, the teams that were already there, or the other teams that came in, they're saying, hey, what about us? You bringing these teams from out west, from north of here, outside of, typical stomping grounds of Texas, Oklahoma, etc. And they're running the show all of a sudden. So overall, I think it's probably good for the conference long term to have more competition, higher level of competition, right? But I think for now, I'll get into this a little bit more later, but the fans in the Big 12, certainly, I'm sure they have some thoughts, about their own teams, how they haven't been able to compete at least through this first week with these Utah teams. Obviously, there's a long way to go. It's just the first week of the Big 12 season, so we'll see what happens. But you got to kind of wonder, you lose, teams like Texas and Oklahoma and think, hey, this is our chance to maybe make a run in the Big 12. And then, oh, lo and behold, these blue and red teams from up northwest, from the Beehive State, coming in and running the show. So we shall see what happens. But I have Big 12 kind of in general as a loser there. And then winner slash loser, I wanted to point this out. Utah State, around the start of their game yesterday on Saturday, there was this kind of report that came out saying that the Pac-12, obviously, a lot of you are familiar with the story of the Pac-12 recently, a big mass exodus of schools from the conference, including Utah. They were down to only two schools, Washington State, Oregon State. And then in recent weeks, rumors of more schools joining possibly in the next few weeks. And several of those were Mountain West teams. Utah State was not initially announced or mentioned. However, yesterday, Utah State was mentioned in a report that said if the Big 12 decides to stay within their geographical region of, West Coast, Western United States, if they deem the geographical setting to be important to their expansion, Utah State will be at the top of that list as far as Pac-12 geographical proximity expansion. So that happens, would be great news for the Aggies. Could use a bit of a bone thrown their way with some of the things that have happened with firing of a coach and Department of Justice investigations, etc. But then Utah State turns around and loses to Temple, a game they were supposed to win, a mere hours later. So not the best look for their hopes to get into a major conference like the Pac-12. But pros and cons there. Winner slash loser, Utah State. Constantly, it seems like they're going through it. Got a feel for the Aggies up there in Logan, but no shortage of action and things going on as pertains to them. Just hope that maybe they can come out on the winning side. Moving on to our stock up, stock down section. Got to give a shout out here to the Cougars, my alma mater. I will say there maybe a little bit of bias there, but BYU football started as 13th in the Big 12 preseason rankings. So let's just say hypothetically you bought stock back then, a month or two ago when those preseason rankings came out. They were 13th. Now your returns are looking pretty good, through the roof, I might say, as they beat, who was supposed to be possibly, the top one or two team in the conference in Kansas State. They come in and you hold them without a touchdown, and all of a sudden BYU is, looking like they could be top of the conference. Some even saying, Utah without Cam Rising, could BYU even win the Big 12? Like I said, very, very early. However, not 13th, right? So if you bought low on BYU, the stock is up on BYU. It's looking good. And hey, it is early, so maybe you can still buy a little bit lower than you might be able to in a few weeks, or you know, you might need to sell high at a certain point too, depending on how the season goes for BYU. So for now, stock up BYU. Um, and then on another note, with BYU stock going up, even on the basketball side of things, I know it's football season, not quite basketball, but at Lavelle Edwards Stadium at the BYU game last night, several kind of celebrity type figures there in attendance. The Utah Jazz, several players were there. Coach Will Hardy, another NBA figure, Adrian Wojnarowski, was at the BYU football game. Famous ESPN NBA insider slash reporter, the Woj bombs, always breaking news about players and teams. He was there, took a picture with several people. Will Hardy and I think Jimmer was in there too. However, it appears that Woj, at least for some amount of time, was hanging out with BYU men's basketball head coach Kevin Young. Woj famously broke the news about Kevin Young going from an NBA assistant coach to BYU's head coach, and then also broke news about Igor Demin, the possible top 10 NBA prospect, choosing BYU as his college that he wanted to attend before going to the NBA. So that's got to be a pretty good sign. Woj has left ESPN and is now working at St. Bonaventure in their basketball department. But for, a person of his magnitude within the basketball world, within the sports world, to be hanging out with Kevin Young, to be hanging out at a BYU game, gotta be a pretty good sign. So yeah, stock up for BYU in general. They are on the rise, I would say. And lastly, before we get into our very special interview with Diego Luna, I wanted to test out a fun other little segment with you guys called Flag on the Play. Insert whistle, referee whistle sound right here. Uh, Throw my flag. There was a social media interaction, a social media post by a Kansas State fan before the BYU game. I won't go into graphic details here, but saying basically placing a bet, saying what he would do if BYU beat Kansas State, the team that he is a fan of, thinking it was very unlikely. BYU was not favored. Kansas State was undefeated and was looking very, very good. He mentioned something about Taco Bell and a certain type of burrito being inserted where it should not be. Now, as of right now, I'm not sure whether or not that has happened since the game happened last night. You can go check his social media, look it up if you'd like to. I won't go into many details here, but I'm gonna throw a bit of a flag on that behavior from from the Kansas State fan. Very interesting, funny nonetheless, but a little bit disturbing. So interesting behavior there. Um, Gonna throw a flag, and we'll see if I bring that back in future weeks. But just thought that was something interesting, and a little wacky. You guys might want to hear about. So I will stop talking. I will get now to my interview with Diego Luna, so you can hear somebody else's voice, hear from somebody else for a change. Diego and I. This was recorded before the Portland game last night, so I tell him good luck, and we don't talk about the results of that match because it was on Friday before the match. But some great topics there. And yes, I did ask him whether or not he knows about the other Diego Luna, Cassian Andor from Star Wars, among other very fun questions. So stick around for that. Right now, my interview with Diego Luna. We'll catch you guys next time. Alrighty, guys, we are now joined by our guest, Real Salt Lake midfielder, attacking midfielder, winger, Diego Luna. Which position do you prefer to be identified by?
Oh, I think with RSL, I've played more of the left wing role, but I think my ideal position would be the number 10.
Yeah,
But
so
I'd say left wing right now.
gotcha. So I guess they both kind of apply attacking midfielder, winger,
Yeah,
uh, left wing right now for Real Salt Lake.
yeah,
Been a really exciting season for you. I want to talk a bit about just kind of, I guess, what this year's been like for you. I mean, off the field, you had a son in the last year or so,
yeah,
and then on the field, you got to be an all-star, and Real Salt Lake has been doing really well, and should clinch a playoff spot tomorrow if all things go well. So
yeah.
maybe to start out, maybe just reflecting or just kind of, I know you're in the middle of it still, but what has this last year or this season been like for you?
Yeah, it's been good, and I think the craziest thing for me has been like individually and in my own head haven't thought that I've done you know as well as I could and have reached a new level that I'm capable of that I've been wanting to reach. But I'm glad to still have performed well uh, throughout the season and be part of such an amazing team that really puts in the work and built a DNA and kind of our work rate and everything. So I think that's the coolest thing about it. But yeah, and like I said, it's not over yet. So we still have a couple more games you know that mean a lot to clinch some playoff home games and yeah.
So just going back a little bit, I mentioned you were an all-star. You got to go to Columbus, I believe it was,
Yep.
and have that experience. Maybe real quick for those that didn't get to hear kind of your thoughts on that afterward. What was that like to be with some of those, older guys, big names, and to just kind of have that first experience?
Yeah, that it was a dream come true, right? Something I could put on my resume that MLS All Star at 20 years old is was pretty awesome, right? To be the youngest guy there and to play to play with like Busquets and Jordi Alba and all these guys was pretty insane. Evander, all guys that are skillful players, guys that I look up to, and that are all very talented guys. So it was definitely something up there, and something cool that I now have in my in my resume.
Yeah, you mentioned you were the youngest one there, but you've been here at RSL for a couple of years now, and with how many changes and kind of guys coming in and out there have been, you're now one of the kind of the longest tenured guys here. You've been here for longer than probably half the team at this point. So what's that
Yeah,
transition been like for you from kind of new guy to more experienced, almost a veteran, we could even say, even though you're not even 21 yet.
yeah. I think No, it's been good, right? Coming in here and being somebody that's been here for a while and kind of that's built this DNA, right? That we've been working on the past 2 years and been here through the ups and downs. It's been good to kind of, from the outside, just sit back and kind of see everybody adapt to our, new guys coming in and adapting to this style of play and to who we want to be. I think that's the coolest thing.
And I have to apologize. I did just double check. You are 21. You did just turn 21. So happy belated birthday a couple
Thank
weeks
you.
ago.
No, you're all good.
Um,
Thank you.
yeah. So you know, obviously you mentioned you guys have a lot more you want to accomplish this season. You guys made the playoffs last year. You kind of had a little bit of a breakout last year in the playoffs. As you reflect on what that experience was like, and then now preparing for another playoff run, how maybe did that experience last year help you for how you can confront this year's?
Yeah, I think we learned, the new playoff setting, right? Where we have 3 games and stuff like that. It's going to be difficult. It's uh, it's about being in the right form heading into playoffs because it's not just 1 or 2 games. It's going to be quite a few games to make the run in. So I think it's about play well and to I think at the end of the day, it's about being consistent. It's not a lucky 1 game win where it gets to put you through. And I think PK shootouts are going to be very important. And I think that's something that everyone needs to take into account. That you know that's what broke it for us last year, and it's something that's a big role in this new 3 game playoff thing. So I think that's something that we have to put in our bags and be ready for.
Did I hear little guy trying to jump in there for a second?
Yeah, yeah, he's roaming around over here. He's playing, having a great time.
You just gotta put on Bluey, right?
Exactly.
Then
Yeah,
he's good to go.
yeah. He's on his Elmo stage right now, so
Okay, we're moving on.
we're moving up the ranks. Yeah,
Wow, incredible. Uh, Maybe moving into some stuff
yeah.
off the field a little bit. So here on this podcast, we kind of talk about all the sports, whether that be college football, soccer, basketball, NFL, all that. And with it being September, the NFL has started up, college football as well. I don't know how into American football you are. Are there any teams, professional or college, that you follow?
I'm not really into the college the college uh football, but I'm a Raiders fan and a Cowboys fan.
Oh, you got both.
Yeah, I got both because I was I was a Raiders fan. The Oakland Raiders, and that's where I'm from. I kind of grew up being a Raiders fan, and then my girlfriend got me. Their family got me into the Cowboys when I moved out to Texas. So I became a Cowboys fan for a bit, and yeah, just support both teams. And yeah,
Honestly, I'm kind of jealous because I am only a Cowboys fan. So we have
okay,
that in common.
yeah, there you go.
I'm from
Nice.
I'm from San Antonio.
Okay, yeah,
So yeah,
perfect.
I kind of I guess we technically had the choice between Cowboys and Texans, but Cowboys are definitely the bigger team. But I'm kind of jealous that you have another one that you can kind of go to
I
just in
mean, that
case.
have a backup if one's not doing well.
Exactly,
Yeah,
which we know the Cowboys always want to disappoint their fans.
disappoint us. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's cool though. Um, and then yeah, so maybe going back to you mentioned that you grew up in the Oakland area. Um, what's that been like? I guess kind of. I don't know if you followed like the other sports teams that were out there, but I know there's been kind of like an exodus from the Oakland area. Like the Warriors moved over to San Francisco, the
Yep.
Raiders left, the A's are leaving.
Yep.
How does it make you feel as like an Oakland sports fan?
No, it's just interesting, right? I think there's a lot of reasons behind it, right? But yeah, it's a little sad, but I think it's people, they realize that it has to be done if they want to keep those teams, big and with the fan bases and everything like that. I feel like, but yeah, I don't really have much to say about that. I think it's just something that they're realizing that Oakland might not be the right place for some of these teams to grow.
No, totally. That makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
The last kind of fun question I had for you, and
yeah,
I don't know if anybody has actually asked you this,
yeah,
at least in the time that I've been covering you, but you have the same name as a very famous actor.
yeah,
I'm sure you're aware of that. Have you
yeah.
ever? Are you a fan of him? Are you a fan of like Star Wars, Cassian
I am.
Andor?
No, I'm a fan of the character. I'm not really that much into Star Wars, but there's a movie, uh, Rudo y Cursi,
Okay.
that he's in, and it's awesome. And I think uh I think our agents got together once, and I think I he has a jersey of mine.
No way.
I think so. Yeah, I remember this happening maybe around 6 months ago.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I think he has a jersey of mine, and I think yeah. So I think that's pretty cool, and I think he does know who I am, so that's even more cool, right? Like he's super huge,
Yeah. No.
and to have him know who I am and have my jersey and have some sort of contact with him was pretty cool, especially him being such a big actor and having a lot of big roles in movies, and especially in a movie that I thought was super funny. And he's in the Book of Life,
Yes.
where of course, my son's name came from that movie. That's kind of where
Oh
where we
yeah.
where we got Manolo from. So it's pretty cool, right? The Book of Life. Diego Luna's on the cover. My son's name is the main character. It's all connected, and I think that was pretty cool.
That's such an underrated movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Because
I
like
agree.
it kind of came out like around the same time as Coco, and like it's kind of similar to Coco.
Exactly. Yep.
But it's
They're two,
like I think it's I mean they're both good. Don't get me wrong, but like I really like Book of Life, so I'm glad to hear that.
yeah.
Speaking of movies and TV and stuff, are you into movies and TV? Are you binging anything right now? What do you do in your spare time? You watch so many TV shows?
Not really. I think yeah, I don't know. I think right now it's a lot of Elmo and educational videos going on in this.
I love it.
Yep, not gonna lie, a little tired of all the little kid songs and music, but
Yeah.
no, it's a lot of that. My girlfriend started watching the it's a new TV show, the the Mormon Housewives.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, and
you got
that
to watch that if you live in Utah, right?
exactly, and it came into town, and she's been getting into it, and it's funny, and he puts it on, so sometimes I have it playing on in the background while they're watching it, and yeah,
That's awesome. Well,
yeah.
maybe just to kind of finish up, I'm curious just in general, like what your experience has been like here in Utah as you've gotten to know like the fan base and the community and stuff. How do you feel like you've kind of been able to become a part of it?
Yeah. Uh, I think that's probably one of the biggest things here in Utah that I've enjoyed, that everybody that's been in Utah has, supported me on and off the field. Everyone that I've ran into, that I've met, has been, genuine, polite, respectful, and I think that's the coolest thing that I've got to notice here about the fans, and even about just people in general that might not know about soccer or anything, that they've always been supportive, whether they're into it or not. They understand, and there's never been any like fights or confrontations where has have made things uncomfortable. And I think that's it's underrated. I feel like that people, it gives a lot of peace of mind to the players, and to us and our families, and coming from new places and coming to an area where we don't know and having the community welcome us really well, I think is something that's very underrated and helps the player strictly just focus on soccer rather than, being uncomfortable in the area they're in and stuff like that.
That's really good to hear, man.
Yeah.
So you guys gonna show up in the same NASCAR jacket that Pablo was wearing on Wednesday? You all gonna have your own?
I think that was pretty sick. I'm not gonna lie. I saw that today at the team store and it was pretty cool. But we'll see what everybody pulls out with. That
Yeah,
would be pretty cool if we organize a little everybody matching fits and stuff.
that'd be sick. I guess
Yeah.
it's not quite cold enough for like a big jacket like
Yeah.
that, but maybe in a
Give
month
it
or so.
give it a month. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. Good luck tomorrow against Portland, and we'll see you soon.
Of course. Thank you very much for having me. And yeah, I'll see you guys soon.